Three of them were two that we knew were going to be likely no's. One was Senator Thom Tillis, a Republican from North Carolina, who had a surprise announcement, said he's not running for re-election over the weekend, and basically staked that on his no vote when it came to the bill. The second was Senator Rand Paul of Kentucky, who we knew wasn't going to vote for this because he wanted to see deeper spending cuts and wouldn't vote for any package that lifted the debt ceiling in such a significant way. But then the third was Senator Susan Collins of Maine, who in a statement afterwards said that she could not support the legislation as it stands because of the changes to Medicaid, including lowering the Medicaid provider tax and what that could mean for rural hospitals. So we're still waiting on the final bill text here, Scarlett, to see exactly what sort of compromises were worked out to get what were really at least 5 other holdouts on board at the end of the day. We know that some last-minute developments included cutting a controversial tax on solar and wind energy projects, as well as revising a food aid carve-out for Alaska that helped to get Alaska Senator Lisa Murkowski on board. I would point out that some of the loudest fiscal hawks in the Senate ended up voting in favor of this, including Ron Johnson and Rick Scott, who had really been withholding their votes until the final minutes here, which leads us to the next point, which is that this bill is next headed to the House, where we are already starting to hear clamoring from some of those House Freedom Caucus members who are concerned about how this bill adds to the national debt.
Okay, so there's that angle, but then there also is the SALT caucus that was very concerned about the state and local tax deduction as well, especially the way that the Senate was less concerned about that provision. What do we know on that front?
So it appears that the so-called SALT caucus is relatively happy with the compromise that they did get out of this Senate bill. It will keep that cap at $40,000 for 5 years. The House plan had that for 10 years, so it is a shorter timeline, but it does appear to be enough to get most of their votes. We are still waiting to hear from Congressman Nick LaLota, who has threatened to not vote for this bill. But at the end of the day, the sense here on the Hill is that these Republicans will likely get on board with that plan, which is why we really are watching those House Freedom Caucus members like Chip Roy or Ralph Norman and what they could do with this bill, because keep in mind, it was designed not to be tweaked. It's not supposed to ping pong between the chambers, especially if they want to get this to President Trump's desk by July 4th. But these members could threaten to essentially tank it and then kick it over to conference, and that would mean they would have to renegotiate with the Senate. And Scarlett, I'll say that at least one senator appears open to that, and that is Senator Lisa Murkowski, who ended up voting for this bill, but just told reporters moments ago that she would be in favor of the House reviewing the legislation and sending it back to the Senate with changes.